This is Charlene, and today we are covering Chapter 3 in Life Interrupted by Priscilla Shirer. Okay, so Wednesday night, we covered Chapter 2, and today we're going to cover Chapter 3, and then this coming Wednesday we will cover Chapter 4. Okay, so let's get into it. Chapter 3. Chapter 2 was really good, so hopefully Chapter 3 is just as good to you. Chapter 3, Story of Your Life. He restored the border of Israel from the entrance of Hamath as far as the sea of the Arabah, according to the word of the Lord, the God of Israel, which he spoke through his servant Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet, who was of Gath Hepher. 2 Kings 14:25. All right. So she started the chapter out about talking about how we describe ourselves, kind of like a resume. Like I'm a wife, I'm a husband, or I'm a plumber, or whatever the situation may be. And it says we often describe ourselves like a resume until something comes along and changes the description. I was a wife, a mother, a banker, an MBA graduate, on to a PhD. But then cancer came, and I became a wife, a mother, an MBA graduate, and disabled cancer survivor. So you just never know when an interruption or divine intervention will come into your life to switch up how you define yourself. It says, perhaps your life was once neatly defined into catch all generic categories: married, 3 children, PTA mom, taxi cab. Then you become pregnant with your fourth child, and though everything seemed routine and straightforward, suddenly your unborn baby's heart stopped beating at 6 months. This was no longer the same story you've been writing before. And that's what she's trying to tell us in chapter 3, that there's a story to our life, and it's not our planned story, it's God's planned story. In one way or another, your story has developed an unexpected plot twist or two, or 10, whether from a spiritual calling of God or a serious complication of life. Your plans have been interrupted, and things haven't been the same since been changed forever by this divine intervention. And I will say that yes, me getting cancer and then having degenerative spinal stenosis from the radiation treatment has definitely changed my life forever. But God had a reason for it, and I have to trust Him, because we all have a way of leaving our legacy behind, and it is often an incident that happens that causes our legacy to be well remembered. It says, think of it, almost every person in the Bible whose story made a lasting mark faced a sizable interruption in his or her life. They each stood at a crossroad, forced to decide if they would yield to divine intervention or continue ahead on their own path. Beforehand, they were just a name on a page, but after it happened, that's when they truly became historic and inspiring. When I read that, the first person I thought about was Moses. Because Moses, who was in the desert, who had ran away from killing someone, okay? He was on the run. He was a refuge. God used him to lead the people, to lead God's people to the Holy Land. I mean, just think about when he was at the Red Sea, and God parted the sea that they could cross on dry land. Had Moses told God to kick bricks, and he wasn't the one, even though a lot of times he did tell God, why me? I'm not the one. And God said, yeah, you are the one. I called you. You know, That was the first one that came to my mind, was Moses. But then there's also Noah, who was called to build the ark, and enter the animals and bugs and stuff two by two. It says Abraham was interrupted, commanded by God to leave his family and friends behind. He embarked on an adventurous journey with few GPS directions, but one that ultimately led to the establishment of God's covenant and his chosen people. Joseph was interrupted. A simple day spent hanging out with his brothers ended up with his being tossed into a pit, left for dead, then sold to traveling slave traders bound for Egypt. Only God could write a story that would take him to the heights of leadership there, rising into a position to rescue his forlorn family from a wasting famine. Christ's disciples were each interrupted. They were commissioned away from their normal duties, demands, occupations, and relationships in order to throw themselves headlong into following Christ as his closest companions. Mary, most of all, was interrupted. She was just making some simple wedding preparations when an angel stopped by to visit, saying, "I got different plans for you. Plans that will make you a personal part of one of the defining events in all of human history." And we all know Mary gave birth to Jesus, and Mary was a virgin. It says, your life and your interruptions have been superintended by the same God who intervened in the Davids and Esthers and Pauls and Jonahs of Scripture. Not every interruption was pleasant, of course. Few of any of them, even the good ones, came without extraordinary challenges. And yet that's what put these people into position for God to tell a story through them they could never have told before. What if your compelling story could only be written with the ink of your latest interruption? Would you live to tell it, or would you defy God for forcing his plot line on you? And that's something to think about. I thought, when I read these chapters, I think about myself as well. Um, am I mad at God that my knees are bone on bone and, it's hard for me to stand or even walk? Um, they won't help me until I lose weight, in which time I could have surgery. Um, am I mad at God that this is the formation of my legacy, of what people will know me for or know him for through me? Strong, strong questions to things to think about. Okay, so the next part of this chapter is called A Mess of a Message. And this one touched home a little bit. It was about a woman who was, she was a big ministry lady. She was known in the Christian circles. People called her for retreats. They called her to be a speaker at different religious events and so forth. And all of a sudden, her son was in a relationship with a lady who had two children from another husband that she was divorced from. And the ex-husband was known as an abuser. And because she got with this guy, he put in to get the kids away from her, custody of the children. And it looked like he was going to win. All right. And he's the son. This is the new husband is the son of the lady who was the Christian that was getting all the speaking engagements and so forth, and well known in the Christian community. Well, her son didn't want this abusive man to get these two little girls, and he ended up killing them and going to jail for life with no prospect of parole. So now this lady, her situation has changed. She's now the mother of a lifer in prison. Okay? And it's funny how people tend to focus on the negative or on what you're going through. Like it washes out everything else you are. Like she wasn't this great Christian speaker and motivator, and now all of a sudden she's the mother of this man who's gone to prison for life, and she could have complained to God about it, but now she finds herself ministering to other mothers and wives in the prison waiting room, in the bathroom, where they shed their tears and concerns um, about their loved ones that are locked up. Her name was Carol. It says Carol's reputation has not preceded her here. She is just another grieving, hurting soul, one of many in this dungeon of clanging doors and lonely echoes. Yet, looking into each other's eyes, sharing each other's story, she discovers something as profound as it is painful. My mess has become my greatest message. And if you think about it, it ain't really her mess. Her grown son committed this act, but because that is her son, it's just, and her ministry is kind of shifted, is what basically what happened. Her ministry shifted from just doing speaking engagements and being well known for this retreat and that, what they call them, revival and so forth, to now she's ministering to other women or other people who have family members in prison. Because guess what? When your child goes to prison, you kind of do too. I know from experience because my son went to jail a couple of times, and jail's not prison. Jail is like, we caught you with some weed and we're gonna smack your hand for a little bit. But you feel like you're in there with them because you're worried about them. It's a whole different environment. I don't know about you guys, but I watched that show 60 Days In, and only because I'm curious to what life really is like in the prison, because the prison guards and stuff, they're not going to invite the TV people in there to see what life really is like. They're going to put on a good show for you. They're going to tell you that, they go to bed, they get up at 4 a.m. for count, they get breakfast at 6 a.m., whatever. They're going to make it look pretty because guess what? These prisons get federal money. They get money to run. Some of them are individually owned and operated by investors, so they may not even necessarily be following the rules into code. Um, and even on the show, you kind of half believe everything you see because it's TV. It's got to be not too bad, but not too good. You know what I mean? To keep your attention. Okay, it says every single one of us wants to matter, and that is so true. We want to matter. We want to make sure that someone knows about us. Someone cares about us. It's so funny. I just got off the phone with my mom, and for those of you who said you were praying for her and sending good vibes, she's doing better. She's in rehab now. She's no longer in the hospital. And I just, every day I just thank God that we found her before it was too late. We found her. She was still alive. Even though she had been there almost 2 days without water and food or medication, we found her alive. And I thank God every day for that. But she was saying how she's just now going through her cell phone and all the messages and all the, phone calls and voicemail boxes filled up and everything. And I told her, I said, Mom, be glad that you were missed. Somebody in this world missed you, missed your existence, missed you. You were missed. And that's good to know that someone noticed you were not around. Because if it's to a point where nobody in this world notices that you're not around, that's not good. You know? So every single one of us wants to matter, to make a mark in life that will be remembered long after we're gone, but only on our own terms. When we are autonomy, independence, and the freedom to govern our own steps. We don't mind Christ being involved as long as his path eventually converges onto the one we're already chosen. We want to select our own course, chase our own ambitions, and decide what stands out when people think of us. And I wanted to stop there just to say, when you stop worrying about what other people think about you, that's when you find true freedom in Christ. Because everybody got an opinion, right? Everybody. Everybody has an opinion, whether they voice it or not. Everybody got an opinion. And if you sit around wasting your life, worry about what everybody else is thinking about you, you not living. You not living. All right. But when the unwanted and unexpected happen, God calls you to Nineveh. A minister who once anticipated preaching to thousands each Sunday now toils at a church where 45 is a big crowd. A mother who trained to be the chairman of IBM is now the CEO of Home. This is not the job history profile she imagined herself. So, what do we do? How do we handle the deviations of life that don't match the script we've prepared for ourselves? Maybe, just maybe, if we'll go along with God on this, we'll see Him set up things to make our mark. Everything we go through is not for us. Some of it is for us, I will say, but it's for someone else. And when you think about it like that, I've gone through thyroid cancer, I've gone through radiation treatment, and I'm now dealing with my body reacting badly to the treatment. So my spine is acting a fool. I got knees that are acting up. I need to lose weight while on my back. I just did a workout, matter of fact, and it wore me out. And Mr. Bob is my witness. I use my 5-pound weights and everything. But my story, my ordeal, is going to help someone else. You see? I'm not unique in having this situation. There's somebody else out there that's going to have the same thing, or part of it, or all of it, or even more. But my story, how God works through me and heals me and takes me through it, will encourage them too to point to God who can heal them and get them through it. Because without God, we can't do anything. So you need God to be able to get through these things. And we are living in some really dark days, you guys. God is the light. And that's what's going to help us get through. All right, the next session says, that'll leave a mark. It says, I'm a preacher's kid, not just some preacher from some church on the corner somewhere, but a preacher or a church that's literally known around the globe. And so Patricia goes on to say how, she used to lean on that. And she's surprised she still have friends, because she used to brag about, I'm so and so. Nowadays it would be like saying I'm Joel Osteen's daughter or T.D. Jake's daughter or somebody like that. One of them big preachers that's known all around the world. Okay? And, she had to find her own lane. She can't live under her parents' shadow. It says, and yet the story God is writing with my life, the mark He wants me to make on this generation and the next, cannot be based solely on information found on my birth certificate or my lifelong membership status in the church where my father serves. The people I love are doing the work of God has assigned to them, and doing it with great humility and faithfulness, producing harvest after harvest of spiritual fruit. But my mark must be mine, built on the past, but also uniquely my own present and future. So she could go the rest of her life saying, my daddy's so and so, my daddy's so and so, but at the end of the day, she has to make her own legacy, and God has to work through her to make her own mark in this world. It says, perhaps you can relate to that. You've been trying to stake your claim to significance on a list of accomplishments and attributes posted on your resume, a docket of background, facts, and figures, who you are, where you're from, what you do for a living, the success you've been having, the family you've been raising. These are all good things, blessings worth celebrating. But if you force this line items of life to bear the weight of your personal value, you will be rudely disappointed at many points along the way. That was something I shockingly had to learn earlier. That my position, my job, is not who I am. It's what I do, but it's not who I am. I fought with identity crisis after I had cancer because I was Shirlene the banker, Shirlene the crafter, Shirlene the sensey lady. I was Shirlene the business owner. I was doing gel candles back then, before I started doing, Cheryl's Crafty World. I was all those things. I wore all those hats. I was the wife, the mother, the homekeeper, all of that. And cancer shut 90% of that stuff down. Now, who am I? And am I just a cancer survivor? Am I just, I call the BED, blessed, educated, and disabled? Am I just that? And there's so much more God has called me. God has different names for me, and it's not just my resume. It's not just who I affiliate around. It's not just where I live, you know. So we have to learn not to have an identity crisis of who we are as children of God. It says, but none of this really matters in the long run. Thank God. It neither exempts you nor disqualifies you from finding real significance. The only way it can be found by yielding, submitting, and fully surrendering to God's purpose. It's the same for everybody. Complete satisfaction and success of life cannot be reached apart from the deliberate decisions to engage in divine intervention and surrender to his sovereign plans for you, whatever he chooses those plans to be. And it's hard. It's hard to sit here and say, God, all right, your will be done in my life. I'm not going to get upset if I make a plan and you change it. And you have to grow to that. You have to be a mature Christian to get to that point where you just trust God and you hear from him and you listen to him. All right? Because, see, we're not here to tell our story. We're here to tell God's story. And none of us are too good, too cultured, too Christianized, or too impressive for him to thread any plot line he desires through our lives, even if that plot line has a destination like Nineveh in it. And I'm sorry if you can hear airplane in the background. Mr. Bob likes to watch his aviation. God maintains just as much right to throw curves into my life as he does into anybody's life, no matter who my parents are or what church I go to. By the same token, none of us are too weak, too disadvantaged, preach, too invisible, or too unimportant for him to speak something of great eternal value through our experiences. I'm going to read that again. By the same token, none of us are too weak, too disadvantaged, too invisible, or too unimportant for him to speak through our great eternal value through our experiences. That means you ain't got to be rich. You ain't got to be a celebrity. You ain't got to be the best known person in the neighborhood for God to use you. Okay? Actually, God often uses the underdog, as I would, for lack of a better term, to do mighty things. I mean, I think about Moses. Moses had committed a murder. It was a refuge. He was on the run. And God used him so mightily. So mightily. And you can imagine how he must have felt with the Red Sea in front of him and Pharaoh and his army behind him. What was he going to do? All he knew to do was to call on God. He didn't know God was going to part the Red Sea. He didn't know what was going to happen. And put a pillar of fire in front of Pharaoh's army so they couldn't advance until after these people crossed the Red Sea. I mean, you guys got to see this stuff. God is so, his ways are not our ways. And he is just so awesome. And we just got to give him the credit. Okay? Because see what we're not here to tell our story, we're here to tell God's story. Neither our legacy nor the lack thereof determines our self-worth and significance. I'm going to read that again. Neither our legacy nor the lack thereof determines our self-worth and significance. It is God's calling and our willingness to obey. That's it. Very simple. God's calling and our willingness to obey. We all want to be significant. We all want to be, make a difference. It says we all want to matter. And that's a mouthful. We do. We all want to matter. Otherwise, what are we here for? Right? So just go with it. Follow him. Impossible as it may seem, let God take you places, even to places you honestly don't feel all that great about seeing firsthand. You may not grasp what he's got in mind for this, but if you follow where he's leading you, you will walk yourselves right onto the stage he has set for you. You will locate a significance bigger than you are, because it is not based on your own smarts and planning and goal strategies, but rather on your utter submission to the Father's eternal, all-wise plans, plans that are higher than your ways. Isaiah 55:9, I just said that, beyond anything you could ask or think or imagine. Ephesians 3:20. He puts you in a tough spot so you'll get to see just how incredibly strong and sufficient your God is. Wow. So God will put you in a tough spot just so you can see how good your God is. And I have to say, I know God is good, because as long as I've been walking with him, since 1991, February of 1991, I haven't gone hungry a day. I haven't gone without shelter a day. There have been times it looked like it was going to happen, but God always had a ram in the bush. Something always happened. And God always made a way. And it says others will see it too and be drawn to God. The next chapter she has is Writer's Night. Truly there is more to Jonah than he realized. He wasn't merely Jonah, the son of Amittai, the prophet who was of Gath-Hepher. He was a child of God in the center of a divine intervention. Have you looked at other people around you and wondered, why have you been asked to endure a route that appears different and more difficult than others? Yes. Woo! I think we've all had the why me, God. Why me? Why today? Why now? We've all been there. It says, are you wondering why everybody else gets such an easy time of it while you're left to struggle with something so hard to handle? Are you asking, why would God do this to me? Yes, been there, done that. But see, your significance is at stake. He's reworking our bland resumes as we speak. He has asked us to walk this road because it's the one through which a homemaker, a single woman, a math major, a grandmother, a country girl, a tax preparer, a first cousin, or a part-time employee becomes a person with a story more remarkable than her resume, a story only God can tell. Wow. Therefore, you are neither confined by your resume nor allowed to hide yourself behind it. Like Jonah, there's more to you than you realize. And this intervention, may be where you find that out. Awesome, awesome stuff. That, my dear friends, is chapter 3. Remember, you matter. We all want to matter. And you matter to God if to nobody else. You matter to God. And there's a reason you are here. And you are significant. And if you let him lead you and you follow him, God will have people remember you. Generations. Because we all have our mark to leave on this world. So I will see you all Wednesday night at 8:45 p.m. Eastern. And we will be live for chapter 4. Be blessed. This is Charlene. Bye for now.